You know, when it comes down to it, The Walking Dead at its best is really, really good. At its worst, it's bland, it's forgettable. And while maybe it has been at its worst for the past few seasons, when compared to Fear the Walking Dead, which at its best is bland and forgettable, kind of makes you have a new appreciation for this show. And don't even get me started on The Walking Dead World Beyond. Well, what's up guys, Mason the Brock Anderson here, and this is The Walking Dead Season 10, Episode 17, Home Sweet Home. So it's kind of funny to me how I went from The Walking Dead, then we jumped into The Walking Dead World Beyond, and then Fear the Walking Dead. And for both of those, I definitely had a lot more to say about the quality of the show. I had a lot more to criticize. And then we get back to The Walking Dead, and it's just such a different feeling. Because while the show has not been great over the past couple seasons, there have definitely been some issues that I have with some of the writing decisions, some of the narrative decisions. On the whole of it, this show is at least enjoyable. It's watchable. It doesn't piss me off like those other two shows do. So we get into the review, and I find myself less thinking and wanting to talk about the bad stuff. I more so am focused on what's going to come next. I'm thinking more so about the story, and it's got me curious to see what's going to happen. So it's such a weird feeling to jump through all these different shows, but looking at this one, nice to see Maggie back and also interacting with Daryl. I'm really excited to see her interact with the whole group. And I will say, because it has been a while, there are some characters I don't remember. Like she mentions a Georgie that she left with. I have no idea who that is. I had to look it up. Apparently she was in season 8, completely out of my mind. But that was definitely the best part about this episode, was seeing her get to interact with Daryl, seeing her catch up with him, and figuring out what she's been up to all this time. Now, I will say one thing that I do find a little ridiculous, and I said it in my review of the 16th episode, the fact that nobody mentioned to her, by the way, Negan's out here, he's helping us now. I do find it a little bit ridiculous, but thankfully they don't harp on that too much. Carol explains what happened, she sort of accepts it and moves on. And while we don't really see them interact at all in this episode, there is that potential, especially since she's brought Herschel with her to Alexandria as well. I don't really know how those interactions are going to go. I'm sure at some point Negan might even talk to Herschel. And if Herschel finds out who Negan is, he might want him dead, since he even asked Maggie, did the man who killed Dad, did he get what he deserved? Did he die? So there are a lot of interesting possibilities here, and it does get me excited to see what those interactions are going to bring in the future. But outside of that, I mean, most of this episode is just reintroducing us to Maggie, figuring out where she's been, learning a little bit about her group, and then encountering the new, probably next season villains, probably final season villains, to be honest. I don't know if they're going to be connected to the group that took in Ezekiel and all of them at the end of the last episode. Right now they're just calling them the Reapers, which does give them a sort of menacing sounding name. And the one guy that they go up against, he was a threat. The fact that he could take down Daryl like that, pretty impressive. And then of course the way he goes out too, it shows these guys do not want to talk. They don't want to spill any information. So it raises a lot of interesting mysteries that I'm excited to find out more about. And I think the two that Maggie are with right now, they're interesting enough. I was a little worried because they introduced 3 other characters that were from this group that Maggie was a part of. And I was really worried I was going to have to start learning a whole lot more names, but by the end of the episode, it's just the 2 that she started the episode with, which is, I think, Elijah and Cole. Elijah, I think, is the one that has the mask over his face, and then Cole is the one with the man bun. Don't really know much about the 2 of them just yet. They seem fine. I will say, when Elijah took off his mask, all I could think was, you might want to put it back on because you look a lot less intimidating with your mask off. He kind of has a little bit of a baby face. And I know in that scene in particular, he was scared of something. But I am curious to find out more about them as well. And their interaction so far with Kelly and with Daryl, I do find them enjoyable. So it gets me excited to see how they're going to get along with everybody else as well. But honestly, that's really all I have to say about this one. It was a enjoyable episode. It got me back into the mindset of the show, and it's something that this show has going for it that the other two just don't. Is I do feel like I can take the show more seriously and I can get more invested in it, because there aren't constantly writing issues or people surviving where they probably shouldn't. They also don't have suddenly intense scenes out of nowhere that don't make any sense. Like the one intense scene in this episode is whenever they're clearing out this little shipping yard. And for the most part, they're handling everything fine. It just becomes a little bit tense whenever there's this crate full of walkers that try to push open the door, and Maggie's trying to shut it. And while I can't say I necessarily felt tension, because I'm not expecting them to kill off Maggie in the first episode she comes back, on top of that, I know she and Negan have their own show, so I don't expect her to die anyway. But it still felt like an appropriate scene, because she's holding back a whole crate full of walkers. She's trying to close the door to keep them in there. And it takes Daryl and Elijah to come in and help her actually shut the door, which makes sense. It's not like in Fear the Walking Dead where one walker is enough to pin Morgan onto the ground, but then later on he takes out 5 walkers that are pinning him down no problem. It does feel like they keep everything consistent as far as who's capable of what, and I do appreciate that. So with all that being said, move on to the next episode. I'll see you there. And now episode 18, Find Me. So I don't know how much of this has been hinted at before. Like Georgie, for instance, I have forgotten some stuff that's happened over the past few seasons since Rick left the show. So I know we haven't seen this story before, but I don't know how much of it was hinted at. But with that being said, this is a very interesting story. The time jumps are a little bit odd. They go several months without seeing each other and then all of a sudden pop back into each other's life randomly. But it does sort of show how they slowly learn to trust each other, then eventually start living together. But of course, Daryl's still very focused on trying to find his brother, which I don't remember what happened to Merle after all this time. And I don't want to look it up because I'm sure there are probably spoilers online if I try to look up, did Merle actually die? Did we see his body? Because I could have sworn that he died. For sure died. Like we saw his dead body, but maybe I'm misremembering. Think that might have been season 2, maybe? So it's been a long time since I've watched that. But one thing I will say in that regard is it is weird to me that Daryl's still so focused on trying to find him. Because even if somehow he did survive, and he has been out here this whole time, he seems to think that looking along this river will give him some clues. Well, if this is where he washed up, which again, I don't know how that makes sense, but that would have been a long time ago, so I'm just a little confused as to why he thinks just being out here on his own will help give him some clues to finding Merle. I don't know if I'm forgetting something that he discovered before he left Alexandria and the whole group. Maybe he found some clue that put him on this path. So there is some confusion in all of that for me that if anybody can give me an answer without spoiling anything as far as why Daryl's out here, why he thinks he could still find him, please let me know, because again, it's slipping my mind. But I do think it sets up for necessary drama in the story. Him wanting to go back to looking for him. Leah feeling justifiably hurt that he's basically leaving her behind so that he can go out and still continue to do that. And then of course him returning to the cabin, finding everything's been busted up. Seemingly she's been taken, maybe worse. It's a very solemn note to end on. Now I assume she's going to come back later in the story because it kind of feels like she's a bit too important to just kill off screen. So the whole Leah story does leave a lot of interesting mysteries that I'm excited to get back to in the future. But seeing this nice connection that she and Daryl built, I think it was a good story to tell and about the right time to tell it too, since we're kind of in between 2 big stories with the Whisperers and then whatever group took Ezekiel and the rest of them. Because that's what these final 6 episodes of the season feels like, to be honest. It feels like we're just sort of building up into the final season by almost moving the pieces around on the chessboard. But seeing that Dog belonged to Leah before, it's very appropriate. It shows that connection there. Also seeing Dog as a little puppy. Once again, I have to say, if something bad happens to this dog, I'm going to find the writers of the show. I'm going to do horrible things to them. But it ultimately culminates to this final scene between Daryl and Carol, where it feels like Daryl's blaming himself for a lot of what happened. Carol's trying to take that blame away from him, but then he turns it back around on her. And so it does end with a bit of a split between the 2 of them, where this friendship feels like it's crumbling. He blames her for a lot of what happened, accuses her of basically only wanting to be right, not really caring about anybody else. And honestly, I don't really know how to feel about this argument because both of them do make their points, and I do see where both of them are coming from. But at the same time, I think the friendship between the 2 of them has been so strong that it kind of feels weird to see them fight. Sort of out of nowhere too, as Daryl's remembering this past, all of a sudden now focuses in on going after Carol for everything that happened with Connie. I don't know, it did feel like an odd choice to end the episode on that argument, but we'll see what they decide to do with that, see if this is the friendship officially just breaking apart between the 2 of them, or if they're going to find a way to reconcile, because they have had similar arguments in the past. You know, I talked about in the one episode where they were stuck down in the cave, and it seemed like they had a nice little conversation. They had that moment where Carol realized she needed to stop trying to do everything on her own, stop trying to take all the burden on her own shoulders. And then at the end of the episode, she still does that anyway. And then that's what gets Connie and Magna stuck in the cave. So I do appreciate Daryl's line where he talks about having the same argument over and over again. Because while this particular argument hasn't been had before, it sort of goes in line with similar themes, which is Carol is a little bit selfish sometimes. She does seem to want to do a lot of stuff on her own because she thinks she knows best. She thinks she's always right about everything. And while she has been quite a bit, there are some times where she's not making the correct decision, and it is hurting the people around her. So I don't know. I don't really know where they're going to take this story, but it's got me intrigued. And I think the character writing in this one as well just really shows how good the characters are in this show compared to some of the other shows. There's a good chemistry here between Daryl and Leah, between Daryl and Carol. It makes me care about them in ways that I don't care about the characters on Fear the Walking Dead, that I didn't care about the characters on The Walking Dead World Beyond. I actually do want to see Daryl and Carol's friendship reconnect because this show has made me care about them. It does make me want to keep watching and want to see more, so that's something that the show has done that the other two haven't. And I think when you boil down all of the issues that all these shows have, that's the big one that separates The Walking Dead from the other two. So with all that being said, though, that'll do it for these 2 episodes, so cue the outro. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching that review. I hope you enjoyed it. First and foremost, please leave your thoughts in the comments down below. I love having discussions with people, so whatever your thoughts were, whether you agree or disagree with me, please leave them down below. Obviously, no spoilers. Also, if you did find yourself enjoying this review and you want to see more, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps me out. I also have a gaming channel as well as a channel where I talk about soccer, so if you want to give those a follow as well, that would be much appreciated. And lastly, if you want to help me improve upon the quality of these channels, I do have a Patreon. All of this is in the description below. With all that being said, I hope you guys have a great day, and I will talk to y'all later. Peace out.